son. Where'd you find this?
Yo, that's so angry, guys.
Nope.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Well, good morning. Happy Monday. It is September 26th, 2022. It's 9:01 a.m. And the futures are also in the shitter yet again, guys.
Nothing like a Monday morning shitter for everybody. Welcome.
Hell yeah. Welcome to DC TV. My name is Brad. That is Jaime. We got Greg and Tamp also with us this morning. What's up, guys? Good morning.
What's going on?
We're doing,
How we doing?
Down in the shitter seems to describe 2022 perfectly.
Don't I know it?
Absolutely. But it is a land of opportunity if you know where to look. So,
Well, this also depends. If we are in a lost decade or not. How much time do we have?
how deep will we go?
Right. So we're going to be talking about that this morning. There is this notion of a lost decade. Also, many other things related to crypto. Do Kwon, Tam's bestie, in more trouble. We'll be talking about that. Let's go ahead and just go over what's going on in the markets right now. We got the S&P that's down another 0.5% here this morning. Pre-market, it's down 16.75 points. The Dow's down another 117. The NASDAQ is down 0.25%. And looking at Bitcoin right now, that was green this morning. Did end up taking a turn down. That's pretty much flat, though. It's only down around $9 per Bitcoin. So no big deal there, which was interesting because even with futures being down, the Bitcoin actually didn't follow suit with it this morning, which I hadn't seen too much of. We'll continue to keep an eye on that, and maybe I'll get your thoughts on this. The 10-year yield, though, is also at 3.78%. Those are numbers that I don't think I've seen since I've started investing in my entire career. That is college and everything. I don't think I've seen 3.78 or anywhere near 4%.
So for the beginners, Brad,
yeah,
what does that mean in general? What is surprising about it, and what could that mean for us?
It's a great question. So it has everything to do with businesses, companies being able to borrow from federally, backed loans, and it's going to be much harder for startups, for newer companies to take money out, and they're going to have to spend that money on interest instead of other things to support their business, and it's going to create a lot of slowing of growth. You guys might have heard about some of this going on, and why this is one of the big reasons why tech stocks have taken such a beating, because tech usually has to leverage a lot of borrowed funds, and so if they have to spend money on interest, that means that they're not going to grow as fast as they did even pre-pandemic. I mean, these are levels that I haven't seen ever since, like I said, since I've been in finance.
Yeah, and examples of those that would be badly impacted were the ones that had zero profit, yet were very successful in getting market shares, like Uber and all these other applications. So you're going to see a slowdown in innovation because there's no appetite for risk of, will this make it or not?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's why Cathie Wood's, if you guys are familiar with Cathie Wood, she specifically invests in innovation, which is super risky in an environment like this. Wasn't so much over the last decade, but in an environment like this, it's been really tough. The ETF ARKK, the ARK Innovation Fund, is down around 60% year to date.
Well, I'd be interested too, because this doesn't just affect businesses. This is something that property owners have been seeing coming from a long time, as far as their property taxes rising, regardless of whether they're in a different school district or not. So Brad, or anybody who can, pull back and look at the bigger view of what does this mean, given normal people have been seeing this. I mean, I had a piece of just land in Texas, just unimproved land, nothing on it, that I ultimately had to sell because the property taxes on plain land were getting to the point where I couldn't afford to pay the note, the taxes, and improve the land. So how the land had to go. Otherwise, I just had to figure out another way to finance those improvements. Same thing on people's houses. They keep seeing their tax bills rising. It's starting to chip away at how much they can actually pay off on their principal mortgage. So does this privatized stuff have anything to do with now the bigger global business picture of it all? I mean, we've seen this coming for a minute.
Yes, and experience it in our own pockets. And that's a great point on the taxes of the property. So I closed on a house in Dallas proper, in Texas just last year, and they were raising the tax value even above what I paid for the property. I went to the tax office and said, guys, here's the closing docs, here's all the documentation. This is what I paid for. And they're like, nope, like overridden. So it's almost like all the chips are stacking against the normal citizen in terms of tax rates and also interest rates. So it's.
But I mean, was that a tall tale sign of what's to come now? I mean, does that have anything to do with where we are now? Is it just something that started at the individual property owner and is now expanded into global business? Are they related at all?
Yeah, all of it's tied together, especially with Fed policy and you know, I don't know if anybody caught. I think I put it in our Discord, our little private Discord, about Jeremy Siegel going the fuck off on Jerome Powell and the Fed.
Yeah.
That's the first time that I've seen that old man go crazy like that. He's usually pretty level-headed. I don't know if you guys don't know who Jeremy Siegel is, just Google him. Super intelligent individual. He's been in this place for 50 years, seen it all. And for him to go nuts like that, I was just like, holy shit. Everybody on CNBC was just like, what the fuck? Like he just went off and just kept going and going. And it was just like, you know, the Fed, you know, essentially fucked it all up in the beginning. And now they're fucking it up the other way. He's like, they just need to stop. And so I was just, I was kind of blown away by that. And
what do you think the average car payment is?
Average car payment, if I had to guess, probably somewhere around $530 a month.
712 in June.
It's more than double historic.
Holy
$712 for a car.
That's insane.
Jesus.
Yeah. I remember paying $280
I remember
for
paying
a Lexus.
I remember paying $167.
I mean, yeah, I paid $200 for my very first newish car. It was a old Chevy Cavalier.
Nice. Nice.
Hey, I was rocking a red 1980 Cavalier station wagon when I graduated high school.
Was that like the first year of the Cavalier?
Maybe. I don't know. It was a piece of shit.
I forgot they had station wagons. Yeah, they were pieces of shit.
But you know what? It got us around.
My Cavalier was my Cavalier was awesome. I mean, I ran that shit into the ground.
Nice.
Yeah.
I did too. I had 6
awesome.
subs in the back of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I did the same thing.
So it's a sign of things now finally showing up in the market that everyone's been talking about, even Dalio and all. It's now we're seeing it occur. And for level-headed souls out there that have been in this industry for so long to lose their shit, it's
for decades. The ones that have been in the game for decades, right? Like I've been in finance for a decade, not multiple decades. And so like this is something that I haven't even seen in the last 10 years. So it has been really interesting just for me to experience this. It's like, you know, you kind of feel like not that I've ever thought that I know it all or that I've seen it all, but like I've seen a lot. And for me to not even see something like this before is kind of interesting.
Do you think we're headed back to the late 70s, early 80s?
I'm glad you brought that up, Greg. This definitely has a lot of telltale signs of the Carter era, for Jimmy Carter era, back into the 70s, which brought, you know, up the conversation. You guys can see the poll in our chat this morning. Some of you guys have already voted on this. Are we headed into a lost decade for stocks? 38% of you, we're getting more in now, that, or 44% of you now say yes. 22% say no. Yes, but not for Bitcoin is another 22%. And rounding out the bottom is a lost decade is FUD. So what is a lost decade? If you guys aren't familiar with the term, the lost decade refers to an entire decade for stocks in general. And now that we have Bitcoin in the mix, I'm sure we could have that conversation as well, or cryptocurrencies in general. But a lost decade is essentially that. It is a decade in which we go nowhere, or in in many cases we've seen in the 70s, as Greg was asking about, we actually lost. So over the 10-year span in the late 1960s to the mid 1970s, the return on the S&P during that 10-year span was a loss of 4%. And it's possible that we could go through that this time around. If you guys haven't checked it out, I put up an article here from Barron's that talks about this. And it's going to be, if this is the case, if this is what we're going to be going through, it's going to make my job really tough. I'm going to have to find other things to talk about for.
But see, that's what blows my mind, Brad, though, is why does the world stop watching when they should be watching at this very time?
For 10 years?
For millionaires.
Yes.
During these times.
Correct.
So informing yourself on, okay, what kind of stocks or what kind of industries prosper in these last 10 years, there were greens in there.
You know what prospered in the 70s? Energy stocks. Energy energy and industrials made up 70% of the stock of the S&P 500 during that period of time. We've been talking about energy on this channel and on my channel at Own the Chaos. You can go follow me there for the last year and a half, and they've gone up 50% plus, depending on which stock they are. I think that there's certainly an opportunity for that. I don't think that it's reasonable to think that we should abandon tech stocks or growth stocks in general. I think actually the risk reward on those is getting quite good. And if you guys follow me over there at Own the Chaos, you'll hear me talk about that too. But I do think that there's potential for something like this to happen. For Societe Generales, I think that's how you pronounce that. Albert Edwards has been singing the same tune for a long time. This is from Barron's. He calls the Ice Age a period of secular stagnation that left yields low and boosted asset prices, but now he looks like he may be right. Instead of printing money and cutting rates to boost the economy, central banks now have to deal with governments that seem more willing to spend than ever, bringing the higher growth, higher inflation, and higher interest rates across the curve, he writes. The party for investors is over. The great melt won't only melt the ice in Ice Age, but investor returns are set to melt away too.
And that's the importance of looking at what stays. I mean, if you look at the basic necessity industries like food, energy,
right,
those are the ones that we cannot survive. No society can survive without.
Correct.
So it is an opportunity in that sense. And Bitcoin being in the middle of the energy actually stabilizes that whole industry itself if they understood how it applies. So it is a time of reckoning and looking at where things are going overall. So I'm curious on the energy sector itself, from what you're seeing on the general stocks. Where do you I see you looking at the chart now.
Yeah, so I actually have Conagra Brands brought up here. If you guys aren't familiar with this is another food company, actually outperforming the S&P 500 right now. It's been a little bit choppy, as you can see, but these are the types of stocks that I would look at. Something like Conagra, or you could even look at, and it hasn't been performing well. It's just been reacting with the rest of the market so far. But Kroger, also another good one. They have decent dividend too. And even Costco. Like Costco came down with the rest of the market as well. They had actually really good earnings this last week, and actually a pretty decent outlook as well. The stock is oversold. Looking at RSI, it's down at 24 on the daily chart. This is your daily chart here, and there is potential for this to come down and retest some other lows here. I like it at 447. I think that it's certainly possible for it to retest that area, but these are the stocks that I think that are actually
primed,
have good risk reward to them, because they do have pricing power, to your point. On the energy side, PXD, Pioneer Natural Resources, is another one. I have this area marked here at $200. Right now, it closed Friday at $208.99, sitting at $207 here pre-market. Pioneer Natural Resources instantly starts making money after oil, WTI crude, hits $30 a barrel. It's at $80 a barrel. So even though it's come down a lot, You do the math. They have the best dividend in the S&P 500 at 13% yield, which is insane. And so these are the types of stocks that I would go after, to your point, that have pricing power that we can't live without. Looking at Bitcoin, we can see where that's at this morning, and I'll let you take it away as far as that's concerned, Jaime. Where we're looking at with Bitcoin.
Yes,
Let's go to the weekly chart.
Yes, on the weekly, if we go to the colorful one, I know Don Fran,
Which one?
right there, that
This one?
So at this moment, if you look at the chart itself, I know Don Fran is cringing by looking at the rainbow colors, but
Oh, that's spaghetti.
spaghetti.
Spaghetti on the
But
chart.
if we zoom it in, Bitcoin just last night. So the weekly candle closes at Sunday midnight Universal Time, which is 7 p.m. Eastern, where we're at now, and it just closed as support right on that line, almost to the T. So this week, now we're looking at, okay, where will it head? But going to actually the energy sector, just so everyone's aware, the crypto industry also has energy tokens that focus on energy. One example of that is Energy Web token that BlackRock is using to validate Bitcoin's energy consumption and renewables, ESG. So by looking at those are other options you can look at in the crypto sphere, are tokens that are focused on energy. And I think we'll expand on this in our Discord, which we have the link in our chat now. So Bitcoin at this moment, to close this out, is either going to close as support. Now, if we move to the monthly, which the monthly closes this week also. Yeah, this week, right?
This is your monthly chart?
Yes, it is. We're still below the 50 moving average on the monthly, and we have an opening all the way down. So we have to watch the monthly also. Will it close at this point? Because now the big question is, will it continue down to the next support level, which is this nice big green one?
It's
at the bottom?
13,008.
Yes, and or below. So that's what we have to watch by the end of this week. I think the 30th falls on Friday or Thursday.
Friday?
It is on
30th
Friday.
is Friday.
Yes. So this Friday at midnight, Universal, which is 7 p.m. Eastern, we should see where this closes. And that gives us the indication of what's next on the monthly level, which is harder to fake out than it is on lower timeframes.
Yeah, just worth noting that historically, October has been a rough month for Bitcoin. So the closing of this monthly chart will be of note.
I thought they called it Uptober.
Hey, different stocks do different things. Historically, October's been rough for Bitcoin. Into November gets a little rough as well. Everybody gives the excuses of the holidays coming up and prepping for taxes and blah 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 blah. That people need to show losses to offset tax responsibilities. There's a lot of reasons why, but unless there's some particular, interesting news, if we really are in unprecedented times, like everybody talks about, maybe this is where Bitcoin starts to hedge a little bit more so than it has in the past to the regular market.
Absolutely. And this is the Energy Web token. And like Don Fran would say, this is shit looking, but this is related to the energy sector. It did cross the 50 moving average on the 3-day. Now the big question is, will it test this green area as support and continue moving up, or will it break back down with the rest of the crypto industry? So that's one to watch, which is 100% involved in the energy sector. Google invested in this one back 2 years ago or a year ago for their Nest program, where Northern Californians could reduce their energy consumption, so Southern Californians could consume more and get rewarded for using it less up north. So that's the type of mechanisms. It's already deployed in Europe.
Yeah.
Google was testing it in California, and now all of a sudden BlackRock says, hey, we're going to use that technology, this token, to validate. It's kind of like the blood diamonds.
What is this chart, Jaime?
EWT, Energy Web Token?
Energy Web Token. Okay.
Yes. And they're using this token to validate the blood diamond type, meaning what Bitcoin is being mined cleanly. So if you look forward and they're aligning with all this, these are the fundamentals you should look at of where we're headed overall: energy, food, and renewables.
Well, here's the bottom line question. Before we get too far away from why we even started this conversation, are we headed for a lost decade, and will it impact stocks and cryptocurrencies, or just one or the other?
It's gonna hurt both. It's gonna hurt both, but I do think that if we are really going into some stock ice age, then I think you will start to see a little bit more of a hedge. Whether that's going to be with just Bitcoin or certain cryptocurrencies in general is yet to be seen. But I think the worse the economy does via fiat, the more that you're going to see cryptocurrency charts start moving upwards. People are going to be looking to put their money somewhere.
And the reality is, if you look at all lost decades we've ever lived through, everything suffers, including gold, everything. The big question is, what recovers first, or what has the healthier bounces at the beginning of the recovery period?
Yeah,
is the way we should look at it, and thus not stop looking at stocks, not stop looking at investment vehicles, because these are the ones that indicate and grow faster than any other business we could launch.
The big problem is obviously that you have to have money to make money.
Right.
So there could be, more pain ahead, and as far as that's concerned, maybe we'll see Bitcoin go up as a result, but maybe we won't. Maybe we'll continue to see. Maybe Don's $10,000 mark could be a reality.
Yep, or optimistic if you're looking at it from that perspective.
Well, it depends on, again, if you have no money, it doesn't matter to you.
Correct, and that's we hark back to the education level. Like, you should be building. We could have been building a nest egg or emergency fund instead of expending it on living day to day.
Right.
It's funny too.
Go ahead.
Yeah, how people talk about Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in the uneducated brain being a Ponzi scheme. But when I'm looking, and I've been listening to you guys this entire time this morning, we can't get out of any sort of financial crisis right now, because in a true Ponzi, if you pull one of the pins, the whole house of cards will fall down. And that's the true problem that our government is in right now. If you pull any one thing from the Ponzi that is just simply printing more fiat, then the whole thing will come down. And how do we stop doing that? So how do we stop a full recession in that case? So when you're looking at a Ponzi, I mean, the real Ponzi is sitting right in front of your face. It has nothing to do with cryptocurrency. There are things you have to be careful with in cryptocurrencies, but where is the real Ponzi? I mean, you get into, the economics of money itself. And I mean, fiat is not inherently evil. It was just a technology that was needed. Paper money was needed for economies of scale. Issues with that paper technology have been exploited by people, like Brad said, for years now, in times well before any of us got into charting. So fiat's been exploited for a very long time now. We are just getting to the point today in 2022 where people have been calling it for a while, but we're getting to a point now where we're feeling the exploits of paper money that have been happening for decades and decades and decades. So this is why crypto and Bitcoin is such a hot topic and is growing and growing and growing and won't die, because I think people are starting to see that the next evolution of money needs to be open sourced. It needs to be something that we can all see because of the exploits of this paper currency that was needed at one point, but is now becoming outdated due to the problems that we are seeing globally in economics right now. So again, the new money needs to be open source and ideally would be chosen by the market. So if that ends up being Bitcoin or anything else, this is why we should start seeing cryptocurrency hedge fiat of all types pretty soon. I mean, it's been doing it for a while, but we're getting to a point where everything's coming to a head.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that the Fed was founded to manage this whole thing. And now they got to the point of printing. And the only tool they're given is interest rates.
Yeah.
To manage this whole global economy. So they're given a hammer when we need a screwdriver.
Well, and shrinking the balance sheet. They're not buying bonds and all that.
Correct. But you saw what China's doing right now. It was announced yesterday.
They're forcing the banks to buy.
Yes, they're forcing to buy.
So fucking bullshit.
I've never seen that happen before.
Every time I see it, I'm like, every time I see something come out of China like that, I'm like, Jesus Christ, thank God I live in America.
Right.
God.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
For all of our faults, we are still by far the best country to live in ever.
100%.
Ever. And
Yeah.
anybody
Don's
who
gotta-
thinks otherwise has clearly not lived in another country, which I have. I know Jaime has. I'm sure plenty of our viewers have. That if you've lived in any other country than the U.S., especially a second or third world country, shut your mouth. Ain't nobody needs your opinion because you are misguided.
Right.
Right. And what's scary is when our country is headed in a situation where we don't see an out just yet. So that's the aspect where we got to stay awake and alert and continue this conversation of, okay, what do we do? Where do we hedge? How do we hedge against this situation that's coming?
Right. What were we going to say, Greg?
Don's got a good comment on there.
You said if it takes 10 years to get back to all-time highs or the lost decade, really it only affects the people that bought at all-time highs. People that bought at the lows still see growth. That's if the S&P doesn't go down any further than here and just stays flat for the next 10 years or whatever, right?
But to Don's point is if you were taking profits, you were cashing, moving to cash funds that you could re-enter the market at these all-time lows.
Sure.
income.
But think about the way that I think about it too is that like if I think about how many people got into the market during the pandemic at those highs, all those people are now lost. I'd imagine, right? So I definitely hear what Don's saying because I mean we're not even anywhere near the highs that we saw in 2019, where the S&P was at that point was around 3,025 was at the peak of 2019 or peak of 2020 before we saw the crash. So we're not even anywhere near that as the SPY right now is sitting at 366 pre-market. So Don's absolutely right. If we don't go any lower than that 2019 level, if we do, I mean, then we're having a whole different conversation, right?
Right.
So I think that in the here and now, yes, that statement makes sense. If things continue to get worse, though, and things fall down, then we're starting to see significant retirement impacts on like 401ks and that sort of thing.
So what do you think is the best? Yeah, what's the best advice that we can give to people who right now? I mean, I would definitely still say dollar cost average. I think that's sound advice. If you can continue to afford what you have been dollar cost averaging moving forward until we see a clear break, are we truly going into recession? Are we not? I think dollar cost averaging to get your exposure into the market is definitely something we continue to do. I think most people have cut unnecessary spending in preparation for if we do go into recession. You're going to wish that you had maybe saved a little bit more money on things you didn't need. But if I save money, like you guys talked about, where are some of the best places to put it? We talked about some Kroger stocks, Costco stocks, things that you can't get away from. The energy sector we need, the food sector we need. So those are good places.
Pricing
in cryptocurrency. Yep. In cryptocurrency, I think you can definitely put your money into Bitcoin. I do expect another dip though. So again, dollar cost average. So you're not exposed to one big price on a buy level. I also think there's a couple other cryptocurrencies that maybe you should look into as well. Possibly starting to again get exposure into punts, basically that if when the market does turn up, that they could hopefully make you some money back that you suffered through. So I know Cosmoverse is happening right now in Colombia. I, for one, will be following that extensively. They got some great announcements in regard to their tokenomics around their native coin Atom, as well as all the other protocols that are being built on top of that. So I will be looking to see what comes out of that conference today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. out in Colombia. But do you guys have any other, kind of advice on what people should do right now that are kind of looking into what seems to be kind of bleak
Dollar cost,
economic areas?
dollar cost averaging makes the most sense in the world as long as
Yes.
you're doing it with stocks that you know aren't going anywhere, and as long as
Okay.
you're not spreading yourself so thin to the point to where you can't eat, pay your rent, and all that stuff. So
Correct.
I know it sounds like it's a no-brainer, but people do it all the time. People mortgage their houses to throw money into the stock market. So let's not go there. But what I will say is, too, is that you're not going to want to look at, in my opinion, stocks or companies that are operating for a loss right now. As interest rates continue to go up, the Fed doesn't seem to be slowing down at all whatsoever. So those companies are going to continue to be super sensitive to this type of environment. And I've been talking about it for the last year. I know Don has too. I think that that's something that you should certainly avoid. There are certain tech stocks that have gotten beaten down that I think dollar cost averaging makes a ton of sense on. Amazon's back down to levels that we hadn't seen since June, towards the bottom of the market. Apple's also down significantly. So I think that those are a couple of stocks that you can take a look at. I was telling you guys earlier in the show about Meta Platforms. Were we live then or were we off camera?
No,
I was telling you
off
about
camera.
Meta Platforms, aka Facebook, is down to pandemic lows. And this is a company that brings in $40 billion of free cash flow every single year. That's down to the pandemic low. So doesn't mean that it can't go lower, right? But with a company like that that's continually making money like that, you got to imagine that risk reward seems to be quite good. So those are the types of conversations that you would have with yourself, things that make sense, right? Not just kind of going balls to the wall, trying to hit home runs, trying to get
Yeah.
to base hits, I think is going to be the key.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Don agrees with you right there in that comment that he just put in. There's a reason they're powerhouse companies. What do you think about some of it's not necessary, but the coping mechanism stocks and or cryptos, things like alcohol, cannabis, nicotine.
Yeah,
How do you feel about those?
Let's take a look at that. So
Yeah.
Philip Morris being the one big one that you're speaking of, cigarettes, that stock is actually flying right now, doing incredibly well, outperforming the markets. Obviously had a bad day on Friday, like everything else, but you can see that it's still very much within its trend on the daily chart here. Philip Morris is going to continue to do well. Another one to look at would be Brown-Forman. That is BFB shares. That stock has been pretty flat, but obviously not doing poorly. And actually, even with it being flat, it's in oversold territory. I think that with this testing the 200-day moving average could be certainly a one to take a look at. But Brown-Forman, if you guys aren't familiar with this company, Jack Daniels, Woodford Reserve, many other liquor companies, definitely worth taking a look at as well. They have a pretty decent dividend too.
And everything's taking a shit now. But like Don Frun and we've stated earlier in the show, is these will recover or more likely to recover first. If everything's going to shit like it does usually on these big 10 last years,
Right.
Look at the dollar cost averaging, which is literally, it's like saving for your future. You have a harvest of money or crops. You set some aside for future use,
Right.
not just consume it all. And that's the logic behind dollar cost averaging into these juggernauts that produce income during these bad times.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Sure does. Great conversation. I mean, we took up half the show with this, but I think it was worth having, especially just with what went on Friday. And, I'm sure there's a lot of questions out there to be had with, where are we going? Everything just continues to seem like it's just going down every day. So I think this is a good conversation to what Tampa was speaking to on the Cosmoverse stream. Wanted to just kind of bring this up. She had shared this here with us off camera, offline.
Yep. This is where I'll be.
You're going to be in Medellin?
Well, no, I wish I was. I'd already be there if I was, but this is where I will be the next 3 days as far as Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday is concerned, watching all these streams. I already watched a couple behind the scene streams from yesterday, people just showing the hotel. They're at the Intercontinental in the middle of Colombia, and it is unbelievably gorgeous, and the setups there are amazing. And the reason I bring that up is because you can tell people spent a lot of money on this big, huge event. Yeah. This stuff is not going anywhere. Everybody who keeps saying crypto isn't going anywhere, this, that, and the other. I mean, You have some of the brightest minds, and this isn't one or two people. This isn't sponsored by just one big main company that throws a bunch of money at it to try to make it look a certain way. You have whole communities of just huge brains dedicating their lives to this type of stuff, trying to figure out the monetary issues that we spent the first half of the show dealing with. How do we make it better? How do we make it better for the everyman, for the little guy? How do we help them win? And some of the things they're doing at this conference are just unbelievable. And these are going on all over the world on all kinds of different protocols, all kinds of different chains. And when you just get that backstage look of what's going on, you can see very quickly, I don't have to understand this stuff to know that it is here to stay. And it's so fun for me to watch and just look between the lines, not just at what they're talking about, but just take a look around at how big of a deal this is. And this is one chain. I mean, there's tons and tons of them out there that are doing it even bigger, so it's just not going anywhere. And it's fun to watch grow, especially in times where if fiat wants to do what it's going to do, the government wants to do what it's going to do. A lot of people throw their hands up and they're like, there's nothing I can do. I have to do what the government tells me to do. They feel hopeless and powerless. Crypto gives you a chance to take that back and try to get in at something at a ground level that you believe in, that you understand as, the next iteration of the technology of money. So I'm excited about Cosmoverse and everything that's going to be coming out of it. I'm sure, tomorrow and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, I'll share little nuggets of what I saw that excites me, things that I didn't see coming. I'm anxious to share that with everyone.
Absolutely. And to your point, Tam, during these times of turmoil, one of the survival things, my grandfather, who served in the Navy on the USS Enterprise in World War II, he said, son, if you're ever in a situation, just stop, calm down, and look up. Look at what the captain, what the more experienced, seasoned people are doing, and just follow that. So if you look to your point, Tam, of these behemoths, financial behemoths like Fidelity, like BlackRock, like the big ones that are involved in the global economy scale, and they're investing and they're pushing towards Bitcoin solutions and also cryptocurrency solutions. And even Jamie Dimon, who says the opposite, they have a shit ton of patents in the blockchain industry. So it's like, all right, like Peter always says also, don't do what they say or listen to what they say, watch what they do.
Yeah, follow the smart money.
Exactly. Yep. So look up, look at what they're doing during these times, because it shows that this is where we're headed. And to your point, Philip Stroh, you asked about thoughts on GBTC. Well, wherever GBTC goes and legislation goes towards a Bitcoin, that's where GBTC will follow. So personally, on my side, do your own research, everyone. I have put a portion of my DCA into GBTC with their push forward to ETF and everything else they're looking at. Everyone's trying to get into Bitcoin, and that should be your clear sign of where we're headed.
Yeah.
Don Fron, he's big on ADA. I mean, hey, if he wants to come on and talk Cardano, and we can have a little, bet on, why Cardano instead of a lot of other things, by all means, let's do that, my man.
Nice.
Good shit.
Hey, that chart must look good to trade it, because I promise you the tokenomics are not where it's at. But if he can make money trading it, by all means do it. I mean, shout out to all the XRP traders, because you made some money over the weekend for sure. So shout out to you, but please don't buy and hold XRP or ADA.
All right. Speaking of tokenomics, Tamp. Interpol has issued a red notice to locate and arrest Terraform Labs co-founder Do Kwon. This is a story that we've been following for the last several weeks, related to Terra Nova and its founder. And it's been interesting. Last week he basically said, "I'm not hiding. Like I don't need to essentially hide, and I don't really have anything to keep from anybody." And now we have more pressure coming down on this guy. What do we think is gonna come of Do Kwon at this point?
I mean, nothing. This is just sensationalism at its finest. This really isn't anything more than they announced that they had a warrant for his arrest the other week. And thus far, I mean, he said, I'm cooperating. So now they just say, okay, now it's in Interpol. It's still just an arrest warrant. Absolutely nothing has changed. And everything that you read in there, again, they want to question him. They want to question him. It almost sounds like the warrant isn't an arrest warrant as much as it is, we need to talk to you about these things we think we're going to try to arrest you on in the future. Well, we're going to try to prove that Terra Luna was a Ponzi scheme. It was not. Absolutely not. They're not going to get it on that. Well, maybe there's tax implications. Okay, if there's tax implications, then, I mean, let me know. I mean, there's all kind of protocols that have failed in the past in a much more criminal way than Terra fell. So where's all the news and the coverage of trying to find and arrest these people, right? Why is it all on Terra and Do Kwon? I mean, I don't get the sensationalism of this, other than just, again, people just wanting clicks. This is clickbait at this point to me. This is FUD.
And if you look at even like Indo Crypto mentioned on how to identify a scam out there, you can see that Do Kwon has been involved with the community even after what occurred. He actually lost out quite a bit of his own Bitcoin stash trying to make this experiment, because it is an experiment. It's part of the R&D of developing humankind to the next level of, hey, and he put his own funds in there. So it wasn't just the community, it's the actual himself using all this. So, and I think that's what we're going to see now during this time period, is everyone that lost, including Do Kwon, brought to forth and have a conversation. The question is, and the hopes are, it is a constructive conversation and not necessarily looking for a head and hanging someone that had good intentions from the beginning.
Exactly. And yeah, it's right on. It's, if you could pull up Don Fran's, latest quote, this is probably why Do Kwon is being so cautious and basically saying, if you want me, get a hold of my lawyers, which I think anybody with half a brain and is being honest with themselves would say if they were in the same, point. I have a lot of lawyers. If you need to talk to me, come talk to me. But in the meantime, let's not pretend that we're in the United States and that everything is cool. Look at what happened to Jack Ma, who was the founder of Alphabet and a lot bigger figurehead worldwide than Do Kwon, with a lot more money under his belt. Alibaba. I mean, so that dude's like MIA, still is, as far as I know. So Do Kwon is not operating in the US where it's like, oh, let's just come have a conversation. He doesn't want to get Jack Mod. I mean, so again, talk to his lawyers. In the meantime, everybody chill out. Just let it play out. Try not to make somebody guilty until everything is known. This one is FUD to me.
And this is the same situation that occurred also with a programmer who developed Tornado Cash open source for anyone, including the government, to use if they want to use it.
And they arrested that sucker.
They arrested the guy who created it.
Mm-hmm.
Only time will tell what ultimately occurred and if he did anything nefarious. But for the love of God, let the innovators innovate too. And especially when they put their own resources on the line to succeed. So, yeah. And so now shifting to constructive, now we'll watch the news as they're going.
And a much lighter note.
Yes.
This whole episode has been kind of doom and gloom, which listen, sometimes it has to happen.
Right. And we're hedging. We're literally hedging at this very moment against all the tide, that's the swell, the water is coming back out. What do you do during these times?
But we have a feel-good story. And that takes us to Guatemala. This is actually pretty cool.
This
you guys,
is great.
Jaime knows all about it.
Yeah.
So inspired by El Salvador's Bitcoin beach, a town in Guatemala is focused on cleaning its lake by diverting used cooking oil to Bitcoin miners. Circular Bitcoin economy in Guatemala is using resources that would otherwise be wasted to fuel a local Bitcoin mining operation, giving its resident financial autonomy and demonstrating a viable economic path outside the government-controlled economy. Patrick Melder, founder of Circular Economy, coined Bitcoin Lake, told Bitcoin Magazine that its Kaboom Bitcoin mining project is a result of a desire to help clean nearby is it Atitlan?
Atitlan.
There you go. While providing a source of continuous income to the community, and quoted as saying, we don't have any major endowment or donations to do what we are doing, he said, underscoring a stark difference with El Salvador's Bitcoin Beach, which was established in part thanks to a donation. Bitcoin mining was a way to get Bitcoin flowing into the community. Many attempts to clean the lake has been made before this project, most of which suffered from a flaw of trying to solve everything at once. Really interesting stuff here, Tamp, and just give me some thoughts on this. And I'd love to hear Jaime's too.
Yeah, definitely want to hear Jaime, but I just want to throw out there, this is one of the stories that all the naysayers that, again, Bitcoin is bad for the environment, it uses too much energy, this, that, and the other. This is a great
story.
Yeah, these are the types of stories with Bitcoin that are undeniable, that you cannot make a crack in to fit your agenda into your anti-Bitcoin like rhetoric, right? It is using used cooking oil that would otherwise go into an absolutely beautiful lake. They are capturing that and using it to mine Bitcoin instead, that oil. The same things we see happening with methane out of landfills, with flare off of oil, oil rigs, all these things where you are taking otherwise truly wasteful energy, bad energy, stuff that's not good for the environment. We're capturing it and mining Bitcoin with it. It is so important because, again, it takes away all the cracks that people with their own agenda have against Bitcoin, using energy as an issue, and it just makes them completely kaput. I mean, it's the best part about this article, and Jaime will go into it more, but this is fantastic. Again, people that have problems with Bitcoin, it's not really about energy production, people. It's about our monetary policy and how Bitcoin makes everything transparent, open source, and negates middlemen in peer-to-peer transactions. Understand, all the bad stuff is simply because of an agenda. It has nothing to do with energy, but this is a great story with that.
Also, this guy on the left looks like a total badass that I would not.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does.
Atitlan is in Guatemala, it's a very famous location because it has crystal blue waters and what used to be a mega volcano location. So that area attracted, way back in the 70s, the hippies and everyone else that were very creative souls. So it's really really interesting aspect. And yes, they do not smell like French fries, at least the ones in Atitlan, maybe. but they do tortillas and a few other things.
It smells more like yuca.
French fries. There it is. So here's a view of the lake. The volcanoes you see back there are volcanoes, but that lake you see down below is the mouth of the mega volcano that was active hundreds of millions of years ago. And it's so high.
So there's an active volcano below that lake? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's dormant, but these volcanoes
around it
started popping up.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So the crust is pretty solid.
Right.
So it has to bleed out the pressure through these other volcanoes. But it is a beautiful location to go visit. But here, the most important thing or lesson to and of course you see a lot of expats in this community. Panajachel is that town on the lake, but the lake itself is growing at leaps and bounds in terms of investments. The fact that they are now let's back up and look at the macro view of it all. Even communities this small, they're looking at the bigger picture. They're leveraging. So the biggest question before Bitcoin ever existed, like desalting the ocean for human consumption, or cleaning Atitlan, because the typical thing when you go to Latin America, one of the biggest problems you'll see is like, man, these people don't care about their country. There's garbage freaking everywhere.
Yeah,
it's like they don't care. No, it's sometimes so corrupt or economically not viable to set up cleaning mechanisms. Like in the States, we have recycling. You have a blue bin, you have a green bin.
So we ship to China.
Of course, let them worry about that. But there is a mechanism of cleansing or keeping Earth as best as possible. Well, Bitcoin is now that answer. Instead of throwing, hey, everyone that lives around Lake Atitlan, bring your used oil. We'll take it from you. And it helps with the economy. And then they're using it to mint an asset that the big global players are looking to invest in and make accessible to the retail investor.
Right.
Look at what's happening. You may think like, shit, that's almost nothing in terms of effort. No, it helps that community. It helps clean the environment. And instead of seeing these garbage, if you notice, they're filling these areas, landfills. So instead of going in there, we're actually minting an asset. And this is just one start. You know, this is happening globally. And it's also helping with the decentralized, because now we have a Bitcoin miner in Lake Atitlan, in the middle of nowhere, ensuring the network stays running, stays functioning, and cleaning the environment. And that's what we mean by the renewables getting involved into this. So it's a very smart play and a great, not a feel good, but a great start to this macroeconomic shift of using Bitcoin, a mintable asset, to clean and the environment itself. Just like we see with methane and all these other wasteful things that usually go up into the environment. Now we're completely burning it up,
right,
and minting an asset in the process. So it's a brilliant solution, actually. It's
a really awesome story. That is going to do it for today's show, ladies and gents. Let us know what you guys think about today's show by giving us a thumbs up. We certainly would appreciate it. Follow us and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. We'll be back here tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern time to go over whatever else is happening in the market, in the world of crypto. We really appreciate the support, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Have a good one. See you in Discord.
See y'all later.
Hodl, baby.
Boom, baby.